And we're back here on WrestleRant. I'm Graham Giuseppe Matthews. For the entire month of October, we are reviewing all No Mercy pay-per-view events as seen on the WWE Network, and today we're breaking down No Mercy 2007. This show was absolutely awful. I'm just going to come out and say it. Now, these No Mercy shows, I thought the Unforgiven shows were more consistently good than No Mercy. No Mercy, we still had a couple of very good shows. 06, which I reviewed yesterday, was a good show. No Mercy, I thought was 05, I thought was good. A lot of the earlier ones were not so great, like the late 90s, early 2000s were okay. But the mid-2000s ones were very, very good, in my opinion, or at least good to great. This show was anything but. I thought this show was complete poop, and I thought it was... It's funny because the show got canceled. I mean, a lot of the Unforgiven, Armageddon, No Mercy, all of those pay-per-views got canceled in 2009 to make way for the new themed pay-per-views. But I thought, if anything, this pay-per-view would be canceled after this atrocious installment, and we got one more, which I thought was good. I'm not yet done watching it, but it will be up. The review will be up for Tuesday, No Mercy 2008. They really should have canceled No Mercy after this. Just absolute travesty of a show, and we'll start breaking it down now. So the opening match, and I mean, I'll kind of give some background about this. So a couple days earlier on Raw, John Cena got hurt in the main event with Mr. Kennedy. So Orton took him out. I mean, he was going to take him out anyway. But Orton attacked him, and because of that, in storyline, John Cena had to be sidelined for 6 months to a year. And of course, he'd be back in 3 months. John Cena wins, LOL. But John Cena, the Superman. So he was out. They had to take the title off him and determine a new champion. So the big hook coming into the show at the very last minute was, who of these men, they showed clips of like Carlito and all these other mid-carders, who of these people will be crowned the new WWE champion? So we got an answer to that question at the start of the show. Out comes Mr. McMahon, despite all the huge Y2J chants which Mr. McMahon acknowledged. He was like, I give the fans what they want, damn it. And the fans were like, Y2J. So I'm not going to give you that. So that was pretty funny. And I guess at one point I read up about it after watching this show that Jericho was at one point originally scheduled to return to this pay-per-view, but I guess Vince wanted to push it back, and they had him come back well over a month later. Excuse me, right after Survivor Series on Raw. But anyway, Vince comes down and says, we are going to determine a new champion tonight, and it will be Randy Orton. So he gives him the new belt, and the new belt was basically the same championship. It just didn't spin anymore, thank God. Not that much of an improvement, but thank God. So he gives him the championship. Orton becomes WWE champion. They talk in the ring for fucking 30 minutes for no reason. Triple H comes out, or no, Vince says you will defend the championship tonight against an opponent of your choosing. And Orton says, and Orton's like, yeah, whatever, I'll face whoever I want. And out comes Triple H, and he starts busting Orton's balls, and he says, I would challenge you, but I don't want to end your reign and have it be shorter than your first. Which is funny, because it was Triple H who ended Orton's first reign as World Heavyweight Champion, which was ridiculous at Unforgiven 2004. And if you think about it, too, I was thinking about it after he said that line, that he would end this reign with the title. He would beat him like in a few minutes after this, which I'll get to in a couple seconds. But he beat him for the World Heavyweight Championship in 2004. He would end this reign in 2007. He would end, after Orton won it back later on in the main event, he would beat him for that title in 2008. And then in 2009, he wouldn't beat him for the WWE Championship then, but Orton would beat him for the WWE Championship. So Orton and Triple H has always been one of those feuds. When people bitch and moan, and rightfully so, about the long feud and the many matches that Cena and Orton have had. But if you really think about it, Orton and Triple H have had as many matches as Cena and Orton had, if not more, and they were even worse. Those matches were super boring. I mean, they had a few good ones here and there, but by and large, the matches that Triple H and Orton had were not good at all for the most part. But anyway, so on this show, Triple H comes out, he busts Orton's balls, he makes fun of Triple H, and all this other shit. So it kind of made sense from a storyline standpoint, because around this point, Triple H had just come back from his injury, from the quad injury, beat Booker T at SummerSlam, beat Carlito in a throwaway match at Unforgiven, and he was kind of in a pseudo feud, so to speak, with Vince McMahon. So he wanted to come out and bust his balls, and Vince said, absolutely no way you were facing Orton for that championship, and he made fun of Vince too, and so that kind of goaded Vince into putting him in a championship match, leading to the title match on this show, leading to the subsequent match on the opener. And it was okay for what it was, but it was a complete fucking joke. I'm pretty sure the first time in history that we've ever had a WWE title match kick off the show, which was ridiculous in and of itself. But of course, like I said earlier, not only was the plug coming into the show, or the hook, rather, was that they were going to crown a new WWE champion. It was that they were going to make history. And in a way they did, but it was kind of in the stupidest way possible by having the title change as much of a... They were playing a game of hot potato with the championship. Have it change hands technically 3 times in a night, have the same match twice, have the title defended 3 times. It was fucking a clusterfuck. But anyway, so the match itself was okay. The match lasted all of 10 minutes before Triple H beat Orton clean for the belt, and he became the new champion. And we would see him later on in the night. It led to the main event. He would defend the title against Umaga. He would defend the title against Orton in the main event last minute. It was ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. But I'll get to that later on in the review. So after that, we had a 6-man tag team match with Kennedy, Lance Cade, and Trevor Murdoch taking on Hardy, Paul London, and Brian Kendrick. So it was a rematch from a Raw match they had. I think it was, I don't know who teamed with Kennedy, or rather with Cade and Murdoch, but whoever teamed with them, they had lost to Hardy, London, and Kendrick on Raw. So they enlisted the help of Kennedy on this show, and it was a fun match while it lasted. I mean, I think it would have been better if they just did straight up Kennedy and Hardy, but they would do that feud later on at Taboo Tuesday, or no, it was Cyber Sunday by that point. They would do that the next month. They had a few matches at, not at Armageddon, I think they had a match at, or on opposite teams at Survivor Series, but they had a feud for the fall, and so it was a fun little match, and honest to God, probably one of the saving graces of this entire show. Because every match in the show either sucked or just didn't make any sense. But yeah, fun match. The heels go over. Kennedy picks up a win, so he gets one over on Hardy, and that kind of furthers their feud and kind of sets the stage for their feud in the fall. So that was good. One of the only, if not the only good thing on this show. So after that, for the ECW Championship, we had CM Punk defending against Big Daddy V. So initially, they had this whole Gold Rush or Champion Chase or whatever the hell they called it on ECW, where whoever won would be crowned the new number 1 contender to the title. So originally it was won by Tommy Dreamer, but at the last second, I think it was Armando Estrada who was the GM at that time, inserted Big Daddy V. He beat him in the last second, so Big Daddy V was the new number 1 contender, which was a joke. Because the guy, I mean, God rest his soul, he passed away last year, but the guy sucked in the ring, an absolute awful wrestler. And CM Punk, who was widely regarded even then as one of the best wrestlers in the world, could not get a half-decent match out of this guy. And I had to put a list together last year of CM Punk's worst matches of all time. If this was not in the top 5, it was certainly in the top 10. If it wasn't in the top 3, it was certainly in the top 5. And it was a list of top 10. But this match just sucked. I mean, you can't even say that it sucked because the match lasted all of a minute and a half. Big Daddy V on the offense for most of it. Punk almost had Big Daddy V beat when Matt Striker came in, got himself disqualified, and he attacked CM Punk. It sucked. And the worst part about it, too, was that they were in Chicago. They were in Punk's hometown of Chicago. They treated this guy like a total chump. Big Daddy V would get himself intentionally disqualified, although the chances of him winning that belt were very, very high considering the size difference between him and Punk. He could have just sat on his head and beat him for the belt. But the match sucked. The finish sucked. Thankfully, they didn't go back to that match after that. They scrapped him out of the title. What was even the fucking point? They had him in the title match on this show. And then right after this, they would put The Miz in the title picture going into Cyber Sunday. They did the triple threat stuff with Morrison. It made absolutely no sense. A complete waste of time. And obviously, they would have gotten a much better match at a Punk and Dreamer than they would have had on this show with Punk and Big Daddy V. So that sucked. So after that, our second WWE title match of the night, Triple H versus Umaga. Now, these two are just starting up their feud, and it really took a back seat after the whole Triple H Orton thing earlier on in the night. It was a 6.5 minute match. It was fine for what it was, not nearly as good as it could have been. They treated Umaga like a piece of shit. He never really should have tapped out clean at John Cena to begin with, or the Royal Rumble, or New Year's Rev, or the entire winter season. But after that, they completely destroyed his momentum. And they had him feud with Triple H, sure, but how much good did that really do for the guy? You know, I think 2007 was really kind of his rebound year. He held that IC title a couple times, but people didn't really care. And he was back to being a glorified mid-carder, especially after he got beat by Triple H clean in 6.5 minutes. Just a joke. So that was not the final WWE title match that we would have. We would have another one in the main event, which I'll get to momentarily. So after that, we had Finley versus Rey Mysterio. A good feud. I mean, it was a great way of building up Finley. By this point, people already saw him as a glorified mid-carder. He had already been back in the company, or at least as a wrestler, for 2 years at this point. And the biggest push that Finley ever got was in the world title chase in late 2006. After that, I don't think anyone really saw him as like a future world champion. He was basically a mid-carder for life. And I think this was his final feud before he turned babyface. And when he feuded with the Great Khali, and Hornswoggle got into that whole fucking storyline too. But so it was a good match while it lasted. I wasn't really a fan of it was clever, but they didn't really explain the finish at all. Finley at one point got hurt, and he snapped his head back on the apron, something weird like that. I thought for a second it was legitimate, but as they were stretching him, I mean, they really went all out in stretching him out of the arena, or trying to, and they put the stretcher at the top of the ramp, and Rey Mysterio was walking out alongside the stretcher, kind of disappointed that Finley got hurt, or just because he wasn't really able to win the match. Finley gets off the stretcher and attacks Rey Mysterio for some great heel heat. But the match itself, I mean, the non-finish was kind of dumb. I mean, it was a clever angle, but they didn't really say what happened in the match. It never really technically ended. You just kind of had to infer that it was over because Finley got hurt. So that was kind of confusing, only if for the announcement that they never really, for the lack of announcement rather, they made regarding the finish of the match. After that, for the Women's Championship, Beth Phoenix beating Candice Michelle for the belt. Not a good match. I thought their match at Unforgiven was a lot better than this one. And, and credit to Candice, too, because the girl got a lot better, exceptionally better in the ring throughout her entire reign as Women's Champion. She proved a lot of people wrong, so 2 thumbs up to her. As great in the ring as she was beautiful at that time, but it was not a good match. Like I said, I thought the Unforgiven match was a lot better. They should have put the belt on Phoenix then. I mean, it didn't really hurt her momentum at all, but I thought they should have put the belt on her then, but whatever. This match was, like I said, if she won the belt in that show, it would have been a lot better, because this match just sucked. It was not really all that good. A lot of botches, not really any chemistry. The crowd didn't care. They didn't care about Beth Phoenix being crowned the new champion. The title change didn't really mean much because it came a month too late. And Beth Phoenix would have a really good reign as Women's Champion, but again, people just didn't really give a shit because they already had the match, a month prior, and the heel was in chase mode. It didn't really make much sense, and the match wasn't really good to top it all off, so that didn't really help matters at all either. So we get to the World Heavyweight Championship match, the Punjabi Prison match between Batista and the Great Khali. So, and it's funny too, because you would think this match would have sucked beyond belief, and of course I didn't like it. It was not a great match by any means, but oddly enough, it was one of the night's better matches considering how awful the undercard was. The Punjabi Prison shit just made, again, no sense. That was the entire theme of this show. But the whole stipulation of a Punjabi prison, and you have to escape one cage to climb over the other, this fucking death trap of a stipulation of a cage where they have bamboo sticks and these pointy whatever sticking on the top of it. And Khali could hardly climb, much less walk in the ring, but he could hardly climb in these cages, and it just didn't come off well. A lot better than their SummerSlam match, which was saying something. I mean, not really saying much, because that match wasn't good either, by any means, but it was a little bit better. They had to blow off the feud somehow. I feel like they should have just given Khali his rematch on SmackDown and have Batista beat him there so they can move forward with Batista's reign. But the match was not really all that good at all, and I really wish they had just done more with this feud and not having it blow off in such a shitty stipulation. I'm so glad they didn't bring it back either, because it was confusing. I'm sure it took a hell of a long time to build up and all this other garbage. So the match sucked. The right person went over though. Batista should have won, obviously, and thank God. I mean, no, technically I was going to say that was the last time that Khali was involved in the world title picture, but that's a lie, because he would go after the WWE Championship in a half-decent match with Triple H at SummerSlam 08. But this match was, like I said, oddly enough, ironically, one of the night's better matches considering how terrible the undercard was. So that has to be worth something. So we get to the main event, the last man standing match for the WWE Championship, the third WWE title match of the night after Triple H beat Orton for the belt in the opener. Triple H retained the title against Umaga in the middle of the show, and then in the main event, they had another match. So in this match, technically the title changed hands 3 times in one night, which is ridiculous and made the title feel just completely worthless. They gave the title to Orton. Triple H beat Orton for the belt right after that in 20 minutes. And then, not the shortest reign either, because that goes to Andre for his 45-second reign in like 1998 or whatever it was. 1988, sorry. Then we get to the main event with Orton Triple H. Orton wins back the belt from Triple H. And to their credit, they worked a very, very good last man standing match. And it's weird too, and I don't think many people have picked up on this. But last man standing match was like the theme for Orton and Triple H. They had, I can't even tell you, they had a match. I only counted 3, but then I remembered they had another one, I'm pretty sure, at Royal Rumble 2005. Like I said in my No Mercy 06 review when I was talking about Batista and... No, that was my Hell in a Cell video that I did for Friday. But anyway, The Batista and Triple H had very, very good matches. Orton and Triple H, not so much. They had that last man standing match in Rumble 05, kind of boring. This last man standing match, which I thought they put a very strong effort in, but by this point I'm thinking, well, this title means absolutely shit. But they had this match. They had the match of the Rumble. Last man standing matches we're talking about. They had match of the Rumble, this one. They had another one at One Night Stand 2008. They had another one on Raw, I think it was, in June or July. I think it was June, right before their Bash match in 2009. So they had 4 total last man standing matches. People don't even face off in 2, much less 4. So, and these guys weren't even the greatest rivals. That's the worst part about it. So yeah, like I said earlier, I think Orton and Triple H have never really had the best of chemistry. I've never really thoroughly enjoyed I don't think I've ever really called a Orton Triple H match great. I can't recall one great match. They've had a couple very good matches, but never wow, that was amazing. And I thought this match was also very good. Not great. Maybe just stood out as being very good because everything else in the show just blew. But they put forth a strong effort, didn't really care for the title change, made Orton look like a fluke champion right out of the gate, which is the last thing they could have done. Building up a weak champion, building up a weak top heel in the absence of John Cena. So everyone really thought around that time, I'm sure, that John Cena being injured for 6 months to a year, as it was originally predicted, although he was back in 6 months, he was back in 6 months like the Superman that he was, or still is to this day. A lot of people thought in John Cena's absence that that the company would be better off, we would get fresh faces at the top of the card, and blah, 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 blah. But it didn't matter because he got beat for the belt twice in a night. Orton did, and it just made absolutely no sense. And it was worse off. It's funny, too, because Cena gets hurt, and we have one of the worst pay-per-views in years, with No Mercy 2007. And I mentioned a couple months ago, too, and I was asking people when the last truly bad show, not like Raws, but just pay-per-views we're talking about here, the last bad or even average pay-per-view that we've gotten in Chicago for WWE. And I couldn't tell you because we've had a lot of great pay-per-views in Chicago over the years. We've had, what was it this year? We had Extreme Rules, very good pay-per-view for 2015. Payback 2013 and 2014, both in Chicago, great shows. Extreme Rules 2012, amazing show. Money in the Bank 2011 speaks for itself. Night of Champions 2010, great show. 2009, even Judgment Day 09 was a very good show. I don't think we had any pay-per-views in Chicago in 08, but this show took place in Chicago, and even a great wrestling crowd in Chicago couldn't have given 2 shits about anything that happened on this show. I'm sure the build, maybe it was okay. I have no idea what the build was like, but the aftermath was decent too. But just the show as a standalone pay-per-view to watch by itself, if you have no idea what happened going into it, or no idea what happened after it, just to watch the show on its own, strongly recommend against it because the show sucked. And there's not one match I would really say, oh, this match is great, go out of your way to watch it. That's usually the case with these bad shows. They usually have one match that's a saving grace. And there wasn't one. Even the 6-man tag team match was kind of inconsequential. There was nothing on the line. It was a fun match, but it wasn't like, go out of your way to see it. The whole first 30 minutes of the show were a complete waste of time, all talking, which is not a way to kick off a pay-per-view. The 6-man tag team match was fun, but that's just because everything else sucked. Punk and Big Daddy V, awful. Triple H Umaga, very mediocre. Finley and Mysterio, good, just kind of disappointing with the finish. Phoenix and Michelle, awful match. Batista, Kali, stupid in the main event. What really wasn't that much better. It was a good match, but just stood up because everything else was just sucked. So, obviously, do not watch the show on the WWE Network. No Mercy 06, No Mercy 2008, and technically almost probably any other pay-per-view on the network is a lot better than this one. And I would love to see a list of the worst pay-per-views of all time in WWE history. I'm sure this has to be on the list, and if it isn't, it's a crime. It's an injustice because this pay-per-view just absolutely sucked. And I never heard before watching it, prior to watching it, I never heard that the show was bad or whatever, just watching it myself. And maybe it's just me, but I don't know, watching the show by itself was just not good at all. So just hold out for No Mercy 06 or 08 or any of the other No Mercy pay-per-views or any other pay-per-view period on the WWE Network. But as always, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Always your support. Your support is always appreciated, so be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Find me on Twitter at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.Jason.Matthews. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on No Mercy 2007. And of course, be sure to visit the website at nextairwrestling.net for full written reviews of Raw, SmackDown, Main Event, NXT, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground when it comes back, and everything else in between. So of course, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.